Morning, guys. All right, today's topic is going to be a little denser and a little longer than some of the other videos I've done. Today we're going to go over some of the mental aspects, not just of fighting, but of that can be used in various different aspects of your life. It will cover a lot of stuff about fighting, but it's going to cover some other stuff as well. We're going to be going over the OODA Loop, OODA Loop, OODA Loop, the Cooper color codes, physiological and psychological responses to fighting and adrenaline. The OODA Loop was a concept developed by John Boyd. He's a colonel. And much like Sun Tzu, if you've ever read that, the Sun Tzu, the ancient Chinese battle manual, basically, it's been adapted to everything from corporate to scaled down to individual, all the way up to government level size organizations. And what the OODA Loop says, the OODA, 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 OODA Loop, observe, orient, decide, and act. That's what the OODA stands for. Observe, orient, decide, and act. Those are the decision-making steps. Okay, it's a loop. If you see it, he'll have it drawn out, and it'll observe, orient, decide, act, and it's a loop. Okay, and it's supposed to describe how we make decisions. We observe whatever's happening, we orient, and that could be as simple as just facing it. We decide what we're going to do about it, and then we act on the decision we've made. That loop that we go through, one, just realizing that is a decision-making loop that we do, gives us a little bit of an advantage over other people, okay? And things like your training can help you. Part of the concept he talks about is getting inside somebody else's OODA loop, okay? Your opponent's OODA loop. Everybody goes through this, but now that you know that you're going through it, it can help you kind of step inside the other guy's OODA loop, okay? What you're trying to do, especially like with training, if you have training scenarios that you've practiced for, if X happens, I do Y, that shortens your decide factor, okay? So if you've done all these drills where I know if this happens, I do, it's kind of like martial arts in a way. If the guy punches a certain way, you have a block already in mind. If you have those things, it shortens your OODA loop, and it makes it easier for you to get ahead of the other guy. Okay, so it's worth doing a little bit more research into the OODA loop if you want. But that's kind of a brief on how OODA Loop works, and we'll come back to it throughout the talk we've got here today. And we'll step into the Cooper color codes now. This is another mental theory that'll help you if you understand the way the way we work. We do these things already anyway. If you understand that we do them, it helps you get an advantage over other people that don't understand that we do these things. Okay, it's that whole OODA Loop thing. So, okay, the Cooper color codes. Jeff Cooper was another colonel, and he come up with this thing called the Cooper color codes. Okay, and you have white, yellow, orange, and red, and then people added black later on, but white, yellow, orange, and red. And what he said was these color codes, those were your levels of situational awareness, basically. Okay, so white is unaware. Okay, you think of white as like you're reading a book, playing on Facebook, watching TV, whatever. You're unaware of the rest of the world. And he basically said you should not be white anywhere, even probably in your house. He probably wouldn't even go for white in your house. But if you're going to be in white, you should be at home, where you know everything that's going on. But you should probably try to stay out of white as much as possible. The next one is yellow. Yellow is relaxed alert, okay? And that's where he said that we should probably try to spend most of our time. You can stay in relaxed alert indefinitely and not cause yourself any problems. What I mean by problems is when we get into the next one. Orange is a heightened state of alert. Okay, that one you're preparing for a potential threat. Okay, your level of stress is more elevated, and you're ready for a particular threat. You can't stay in orange for an extended period of time. It'll wear you out mentally, and all of that stress has physiological responses as well. Okay, so you can't live in orange. All right, orange should be used for when you have a potential specific threat emerging. Okay, if you're in relaxed alert, yellow, and you're walking through the parking lot of Walmart and you see a guy approaching you, obviously approaching you because there's no car around, you're by yourself, this guy's coming up to you. Now you can switch into orange and say, hey, this guy is a potential threat. I need to address that. And you say, hey man, what do you need? I go, I need some gas money or whatever. No, sorry dude, I don't have anything for you. I don't carry cash. And then if he keeps coming, then you can stay in orange and continue to address him. So say, hey man, you need to stop right there. And if he keeps coming, then he's starting to demonstrate intent that you may need to be shifting on up into red. Red is, okay, now he is a specific threat and I may need to start fighting him. Okay, whatever that means, however that fight needs to go down. Then they shift on over. Somebody has come up with black above the red Cooper code, and that is you're actually in the fight, but if you can stay in red, red is I'm in the fight, but I still have my full logical cognitive faculties. Okay, I'm not fighting out of anger, I'm fighting out of necessity. All right. Black, you are in the fight, but sometimes in black you either lose it to fear or adrenaline, or you can lose your full cognitive abilities, and that puts you at a disadvantage in the fight. So you want to try to stay out of black, and you want to try to stay out of white. Live in yellow, and only hit into orange and then up into red when it's absolutely necessary. Okay, that's kind of the guideline for those. But if you know what those steps are, you can recognize them in yourself, and you can, if you feel particularly stressed, but there's no particular stressor, you can say, wait a minute, okay, I'm in orange, no reason to be in orange. Okay, you can dial it back down and pull back down into yellow. It'll help you meter your own stress levels. Okay, so know that those color codes and know where you need to be at any given time. Okay, white, yellow, orange, red, and then black. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about some psychological and then physiological reactions to threats and fighting. Okay, some of the psychological responses to threats. You always heard in school, the old fight or flight thing. Something scares you, and you get ready to fight or you prepare to run. All right, and that those are two of them, but there's a couple of other responses that are common in people, and we just don't even really think about it. You have freeze, submit, posture, and then fight and flight. Okay, the other ones, when you think about it, it makes sense, but we just don't typically. Freeze, that's obvious, especially if you have no plan. All right, if something happens, you get stuck in the, oh crap, this can't be happening to me, that's horrible, and you just stand there until your decision making ability to make any decisions is long past the useful stage. Okay, you don't want to freeze. Things that'll help you not freeze are plans and the acceptance beforehand that bad things can happen. Okay, and so when they happen, you've already accepted that can happen, and so you're more prepared to deal with it. So obviously you don't want to freeze. And I want to tell you this, on these psychological things, none of us can really predict what we're going to do in an adrenaline-filled moment. Okay, you may be a hero one time, and the next time you might freeze. And there's not a whole lot that can be done to anticipate that. Training, practice, mental rehearsal, and stuff like that stuff all helps, but it could still be one day you freeze. Okay, it doesn't make you a coward. Just try to break it. Okay, if you catch yourself doing that, try to break yourself out of it. So that one's freeze. Submit. All right, obviously, if somebody approaches you with a threat, that is an option. Okay, if they want your wallet, and your spider sense is saying, hey, if I give him my wallet and my phone, he'll leave. Do that, you know, because once you roll the dice on gunfight, then, you know, remember that they get a roll too. All right, so it's not just, you know, I draw my gun and I win. You know, in a gunfight, bullets move both ways. So if you can, if the submission works, might want to go with it. But you also have to have your spider sense on for some situations. Submitting is not an option. All right. If somebody's trying to get you to go into their vehicle, if you're in a convenience store robbery and the guy's trying to round everybody in the store up and take them to the back office or a cooler or something like that, secondary scenes are almost always fatal for victims. Okay. Primary scenes, large percentage of the time, the bad guy gets his money or whatever and he's gone. But if he tries to move you to a secondary scene, secondary scenes are almost always fatal. So you never want to submit into going into a secondary scene. Primary scenes, submission may save you some negative outcomes. But you have to use your spider sense in the moment and decide, should I be submitting to this one or is this going to require fight? Okay. Before we get to fight, though, there's another one called posturing. And you'll hear some of the people in the gun community calling it the monkey dance. You know, and that's the guys at the bar that are all puffed up and stuff, and what they're trying to do is they're fighting without actually getting into a fight. You know, if I can make you think you're going to lose this fight if you get into it, then maybe we don't have to have the fight. You'll see that verbally and physically, people posturing, and what they're trying to do is trying to avoid actually having to get into a fight. You know, if you can use that in various different ways. But yeah, know that that's one of the steps. Then you have flight. Of course, that's run away. If that's an option, sometimes that may be the best option to take. Okay, fighting. Remember, especially in a gunfight, bullets move both ways. It's not a magic talisman. You don't just have a gun and you win. So you need to make decisions based on, you know, where you're at and what you're doing. Are you a cop? You a civilian at the time? What's your goal? What's your mission? But you need to know where you're going before you make the decision to fight or flight. Okay, so we have freeze, submit, posture, fight, flight. Okay, those are the responses to a threat. Okay, the psychological responses to a threat. And like I said, you can step through those in an encounter. You may freeze at first and then run. Okay, you may freeze at first and then fight or posture, or, you know, you could step around in that throughout the course of the encounter. So know that it's not set, and know that it's not just because you reacted one way once, it's not a guarantee that you're going to react that way again in the future. So, you know, the brain's a silly creature. Now, physiological responses to adrenaline. Okay, that's these are some things that are going to happen to your body when you step into that fight or flight response narrative. You're going to get a big hit of adrenaline. All right, and when you get that hit of adrenaline, it's going to do some things for you. One, it's going to give you heightened senses. It's going to give you heightened strength. But it can also cause you to shake and tremble. When that happens, sometimes you mistake it for fear. All right, sometimes your adversary might mistake it for fear. Know that that's not the case, or not necessarily the case anyway. But, you know, if you're trying to work your gun and your hands are shaking, you might think, damn, I'm scared to death. And you might be afraid. But know that that is a physiological response to adrenaline. If you've got adrenaline in your system, your hands are going to tremor. You're going to be wired. All right. So know that that's out there. That's part of one thing that you can practice for. And a lot of the better gun schools will kind of help you work with that. You want to not rely so heavily on fine motor skills. Okay, like gun manipulation and stuff, you don't want to rely greatly on fine motor skills, because your fine motor skills are limited when you're scared. All right, so you want to use gross motor skills. So an example is like when you're manipulating a gun, you're going to want to work the slide this way using your gross motor skills instead of counting on using the slide release, and you're using the fine motor skills of your thumb to hit the slide release. Just stuff like that. But There's a few others as well, but you just need to know that your fine motor skills are going to be compromised whenever you're under adrenaline. Some other things that can happen to you. You can get tunnel vision. Okay, whenever the threat appears, you're completely focused on what you perceive to be the threat, to the point sometimes that, like, if somebody pulls a gun on you, the gun is the threat, not the person holding the gun. Your focus goes all the way down, and the only thing in the world you see is that guy's gun. It's kind of interesting. You can go through the shoot houses that in law enforcement communities, whenever they do like the shoot no shoot examples, they'll go through a house, there'll be targets hanging, and they'll go through there. If they see a gun, that's a threat target, they're supposed to shoot it, unless the guy with the gun has a badge. So it's, gun, threat, shoot, gun, badge, don't shoot, okay? And so you're going through the house after the guys have shot the place up, and what you'll see is a lot of the shots tend to focus around the gun, because as the guys are going through the house, what they'll do is they'll see target person, they scan the target for threat indicators, and when they find the threat indicator, the gun, that's where their focus is still at when they're putting bullets in it. Okay, so they're going through the house with their gun out. Threat is the gun. Boom, there are bullet holes clustered around the gun. That's not the most effective way to stop somebody who's shooting at you. You want to put the bullets in the bad guy, not around his gun hand. Yeah, okay, you get lucky and shoot the gun out of his hand, but this is a much bigger target than that is. Okay, so you want to make sure your focus is in the correct place. So yeah, tunnel vision. And you want to practice breaking that tunnel vision, all right? You'll see some of the higher end gun schools, after you've made your shots, you scan. Okay, you intentionally scan for other threats, and what you're doing is you're intentionally breaking the tunnel vision. So you're not just focused on this guy. Does this guy have buddies that I need to know about? You need to break your tunnel vision. Auditory exclusion, okay? Auditory exclusion. You may not, when the adrenaline hits, you may not be able to hear anything, all right? I was involved in a situation and wound up getting into a shooting situation, and shooting a 9mm pistol outside, when I fired it, it sounded quieter than I have ever had it sound on the range with hearing protection on, okay? I could just barely hear the gun firing, all right? So, and afterwards, my ears weren't ringing. As soon as the adrenaline cleared out, I had no after effects of it. So, adrenaline's it's a crazy creature. Okay, so you do know that it's going to affect the way you hear. All right, time dilation. Time dilation. That's the thing they show in the movies. When the explosion happens and time slows down and everything looks like it's happening in slow motion. That kind of stuff happens, all right? It seems like you're moving in slow motion. It seems like the other guy's moving in slow motion. But what's happening actually is happening is your brain is now moving super, super fast, and it makes everything else appear that it's slowing down. And I've done all kinds of research on different people and how they've reacted to this and listened to interviews and stuff. The craziest one of this that I heard was a fighter pilot from Vietnam talking about being in a dogfight with a MiG. And he said he and this other plane passed each other canopy to canopy. Okay, so they went past each other, and God knows how fast they were moving, super fast jets, right? He said, but as they passed each other, he could see the other pilot in the other airplane. But not only could he see the other pilot, this is the adrenaline effects here of time dilation. He said his brain was trying to consume all of this, and he said he started counting the rivets that were holding the canopy, okay? And he said he remembered counting up to 13 rivets on the canopy as they passed, probably going, Machs. I don't know what, both planes combined speed against each other would be. But he could see the dude, the other fighter pilot, and he could count the rivets on the guy's canopy as he was going by. So, that's showing you a couple of things. One, it's showing you how your time dilation works and how much it's allowing you to process. But also how your brain can kind of act like a dog looking at a squirrel. It's just like, I've got all this attention and stuff, and it's not necessarily going someplace I need it to go. So you need to be able to recognize that and bring it back to where it needs to be so you can focus on the task at hand. Okay, so that's time dilation. Temporary loss of memory. Okay, this is more like after effects. All right, so as soon as the event is over, your brain's going to be gel for a while. Okay, the law enforcement community, typically after a shooting scenario, they give good departments anyway, will give their officers up to 2 sleep cycles, 72 hours, to allow your brain to clear the adrenaline and allow you to remember what actually happened in the scenario, because it's not going to all be there right then. So if immediately after a scenario you start running your mouth, you could have it screwed up. Okay, you may not remember facts, you may misremember facts, you may have your brain's just not gel right. Okay, so you need to give yourself a couple of days of sleep, and you need to sit and ponder on it, because the statements you make immediately, those go on record. Those are usually recorded, and anything you add later looks like a modification, and it's harder for you to say, oh no, I remember now. Now it just looks like you're making it up. So the best thing is if you can give a very minimal brief, and this goes for civilian shooting situations as well as law enforcement, a minimal brief. You know, I was afraid for my life, the guy had a gun, I had to defend myself, and kind of leave it there. The adrenaline's going to make you want to talk. Okay, try not to. Okay, try to give the bare minimum that gets the picture across, and make a full, tell them you will plan on making a full statement whenever you calm down. Okay, and hopefully they'll respect that. All right, because you really do need the time to get your head back in the game. So all of the stuff that we've seen here, all of the physiological, psychological, the color codes and stuff, it all flows right back around into that OODA loop. Okay, the observe, orient, decide, and act. Because not only are you doing all of these things, your opponent is doing all of these things as well. He's going through all of the same physiological, psychological responses. He's living in the same color codes and stuff. He just may not know it, and he doesn't know what all these things are happening. So that you knowing all of the responses that your body and your mind are going through will help you get inside that OODA loop for your opponent and help you win. Okay, and because that's what the name of the game is, you going home at night, right? So hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. I'd love to hear your feedback on this, anything you'd like to hear more of or elaborated any on it, and I'll be glad to. Thank you. Stay safe.